Thank you, and what a delight to see you here. I'm going to help the press and the media people, give them some headlines. What do you think? About slightly less than 50,000 people gathered in the mall, and so we'll help them with their count just a little bit. But you are here. How many agree with me? It's time for the citizens of North Carolina to be able to decide what is marriage in your state. How many think it should not be judges from other states making that decision? It shouldn't be the United States Congress. It certainly shouldn't be states that are experimenting. How many believe it needs to be the people of North Carolina? Marriage is a fundamental concept on which society rests. A good economy depends on strong marriages. Good children depend on strong marriages. A good educational system depends on strong marriages. Freedom of religion depends on strong marriages. Freedom of speech depends on strong marriages. And how many believe a good future for North Carolina depends on strong marriages? Now, I'm excited to see you here because you're going to have an opportunity to go talk to your elected officials. And how many believe they need to listen to you? Now, there's going to be people that are going to tell you things like, oh, well, if you're a church or if you're a school or if you're a nonprofit entity, you shouldn't get involved in politics. May I tell you, under the law, you are completely protected to speak on these moral issues. There are no limits whatsoever. You can put the time in, you can put the effort in, you can put the money in, and how many believe we need to do everything to get the vote to the people? The legislative leaders here have not listened. They have rebuffed these opportunities, and we're very thankful to those that have initiated these things. But how many believe it needs to get out of committee and get to a vote? And the voters need to decide. Now, there's a powerful machine out there. How many understand the homosexual rights agenda do not want the people of North Carolina to vote? And it seems like they're pushing it through the media, they're pushing it through the schools. In some sense, they get business on their side. But how many believe we need to take this issue to the people and let them decide? Now, your legislators are going to ask you two questions when you go see them, because this is what they ask on any of these kind of issues. They're going to ask you, number one, why is this amendment needed? And I'm going to give you a couple quick points. And if you don't get these down, I can email them to you. Just contact our office. I'd be glad for you to have them. Number two, they're going to ask, what are other states doing? And how many believe if you can answer those two questions, they have no excuse not to let the people vote? Couple quick reasons why this amendment is important. Number one, the amendment is good for North Carolina's children. The implications for children in a world of decaying families are profound. A recent article discovered that when you take these legally sanctioned gay unions in Scandinavian countries that have destroyed the institution of marriage, half of the children are born out of wedlock. It's now predicted in America, based on trends, that more than half of the children born in the 1990s will spend at least part of their childhood in single-parent homes. If this continues, almost every child will have several moms and dads, perhaps 6 or 8 grandparents, dozens of half-siblings. It will be a world where little boys and girls are shuffled from pillar to post in an ever-changing pattern of living arrangements where huge numbers of them will be raised in foster care homes or even living on the streets, as millions do in other countries all over the world. Imagine a North Carolina where nothing is stable and where people think primarily about themselves and their own self-preservation. How many believe for the children we need the amendment? Another reason, The marriage amendment will protect against opening the door to all forms of unusual marriages in North Carolina. Now, the other side says, oh, no, we don't think that would happen. But may I remind you, who would have thought same-sex marriage would have happened? Why stop with same-sex marriage? Why not polygamy? Why not 3 or 4 spouses? Why not involve other commitments, relationships? Maybe people will want to marry pets or robots, but how many think the marriage amendment closes the door and says we will define marriage? The marriage amendment also protects North Carolina's public schools. Please understand, if you do not define marriage in your Constitution, how many realize the curriculum and the teachers will have to advance the gay rights agenda? States like Massachusetts are stressing stories called like The King and the King, and it tells a story of a handsome prince who was ordered by his mother to marry. He rejects the princess in the story, but finally falls in love with and marries her brother. The book ends with a picture of the newlyweds kissing. Christian parents in Massachusetts said, we opt out. We don't want our 2nd grade child exposed to this story. The school refused and said, you cannot opt out. It might make the other students feel rejected if your children leave the room. The courts stood against the parents, and that's what happens to the schools when you don't define marriage. How many believe North Carolina educational schools need to be protected in defining marriage? It also protects your legal system as it deals with adoptions. The standard in the law has always been to act in the best interest of the children. And how many believe the best interest is a mother and a father for those children? In these tough economic times, may I also mention the marriage amendment saves money. How many would like to see your government save some money? Think about the impact on Social Security of millions of new dependents that will be entitled to survivor benefits. Billions of dollars will already be put on our overburdened government. How about the cost to business? Unproductive costs mean fewer jobs for those who need them. Are state and city governments ready to raise taxes substantially to provide health insurance and other benefits to millions of new spouses and other dependents? How many understand the marriage amendment saves North Carolina? I also believe the marriage amendment sends the right message to the world. How many understand America is the lone superpower? And people are looking and wondering, what will America do? Just like we had the Supreme Court rule that obscenity was okay and pornography swept the world. Just like we had the Terry Schiavo case and the rights of the disabled and the elderly are no longer protected like they were. Now the world wants to know, what will America do with marriage? Right now there's only 2 countries, the Netherlands and Belgium, that have legalized, and the rest of the world, including Canada and other nations, are wanting to see what America will do. How many believe North Carolina needs to send the right example to the world? The marriage amendment also protects religious liberty and free speech. How many appreciate the fact that we do have these liberties under our First Amendment in America? I don't want to see a North Carolina where pastors are arrested for hate speech. I don't want to see a North Carolina where pastors are sued for refusing to marry same-sex couples. I don't want to see a North Carolina where churches and schools and others are sued for having religious-based hiring and firing standards. How many understand the marriage amendment protects freedom for all citizens?